This is the final result of our project. Minimum number of characters required for name field is 2 and the maximum number is 12. So if it is more than 12, it will show a warning. Age field only accepts integer numbers. The age must be between 18 and 60. You can only enter email inside email field, otherwise it will show a warning. In the phone field, only numbers are allowed. Also, minimum number of digits is 10. If we add anything other than number, it will show a warning. In message field, minimum number of characters is 5 and the maximum number of characters is 100. You can also see we are disabling the submit button if there is any error in our form. If any of this field become invalid, the button get disabled. Disabling the button is an optional step. Even if you do not disable this button, user cannot submit this form with an error. Now if you go to the console, you can see an object. It contains all values as key value pairs. You can download this entire project. Link is in the description. First create a new React project using create React app. And the name of the project is Formik. Go to the project folder and run the program using npm start. The project is running. Now go to app.js, click on source folder and click app.js. Remove all this code. So we removed everything. Next, stop this project. Now go to Google and search Formik and open the first result. Click on Get Started. Now scroll down. Copy this npm install Formik. Paste it in the terminal and click enter. This will install Formik. We need to install one more dependency, that is yep. It is used for validation. Copy this code npm install yep and paste it in the terminal and click enter. This will install yep in our project. Now restart our project using npm start. Next we are going to import Formik from Formik library. So now we imported Formik from Formik library. Inside the JXX, create a Formik tag. Next we are going to see how to render our form inside this Formik tag. So go to our official documentation and scroll down. You can see Formik tag. Click on it. Scroll down. You can see there are two methods to render our form inside our Formik tag. The first method is using component. You can use component as an attribute. The second method is using children. Here also you can use children as an attribute. We are going to use component method. If we scroll down again, you can see an example which uses component. You can use component as an attribute and the name of the component as value. In the second method, we use children as an attribute and an arrow function as the value. Instead of using children attribute, you can directly add the arrow function inside Formik tags. You will get all the props as parameter and use form as a return value. In the project, we are going to use component. So copy this and paste it inside our Formik tag. So we added an attribute component with the value contact form. Next we need to create this contact form component. For that, create a new folder. Name it components. And then create a new file, contact form.js inside our new folder, components. Now inside that file, create a new component. The name of the component is contact form. Go back to app.js. Now we need to import this contact form. Now we imported contact form from component/contact form, that is the path to the file. Next, I am going to add Bootstrap, a CSS framework, into our project. This is an optional step. You can use your own CSS file. I am going to use Bootstrap. So copy this. Now go to public folder and open index.html. I am going to remove all these comments. In between the head tags, add our CSS link. Now we can use all classes from Bootstrap framework. This link will add bootstrap.min.css into your project. As I told you before, you don't have to use Bootstrap framework. You can create your own CSS classes and use that. If you are going to create CSS classes, you can add that inside app.css file. Now go back to contact form.js and create a new form. So first add form tag. Inside form tag add label. Here the label is name. Next add an input field. Also add a button. And the name of the button is submit. Now go to our project. You can see the form is created. Now we are going to add some CSS styling. For that I am going to use Bootstrap classes. First we need to cover our label and input field with a new div and add a class form group. Next add CSS class for label and also for input field. Also add styling for our button. Now go back to our project. You can see some styling is added to our form. Now we need to align this form. So we need to add few more Bootstrap classes. Now go back to our project. You can see now the form is aligned in the center. Next we are going to import two more elements from Formik. First one is form element with a capital F. And we are going to replace our form tag with that element. Next we are going to use field. We are going to use field instead of input. Now let's go to the documentation and click on this form tag. Here you can see the documentation clearly tells about the advantage of using form element. The main advantage is that it will automatically connect on submit and on reset to Formik. Next we are going to look for the advantage of using field tag instead of input. Click on the field tag. Field tag will connect each input to our Formik library. It uses the name attribute to connect the field with the library. Next we are going to add a name attribute to our field. You can give any value you like. I am going to give username as the name of this field. This name should be unique. You cannot give this name to any other field. Also you should add button type as submit. Now go back to app.js. Inside Formik tag, we are going to add on submit event. As a callback function, we add an arrow function. As a parameter of this function, we get a value. Next, we are going to console log this value. Now let's go back to our project and type something. So we got an error here, cannot read the property username. So go back to your project. We need to add one more attribute inside this Formik tag, that is initial values, and the value of this attribute is an object. Inside this object we need to add initial values of each field. So first we are going to add username. The initial value is empty string. The username is the name of our field. Now go back to our project and go to console. Inside the name field, type coder and press submit. You can see an object is printed with the key username and value coder. Username is the name of the field. We used it to give the initial value. It acts similar to an ID to connect our input field to the form. Instead of an empty string, I am going to give a value here. I am going to give my name. Now if you refresh this page, you can see the initial value is my name. If we edit this and refresh the page, my name will be always the initial value for this field. Here we don't need to give any initial value, so I am removing it. So our initial value again become an empty string. Go back to VS Code and press Ctrl Shift F. This will format our page, and this is done with the help of an extension Prettier. You can install it in your VS Code. Now go back to app.js. Next we are going to add validation to our field. For that, add an attribute validation schema inside Formik tag. Error schema is the value of this attribute. So name of the validation attribute is validation schema and the value is error schema. Next we need to create this error schema constant. Create a constant error schema. We are going to use app library to define the shape of the validation. So app.object.shape. Inside the shape function, add an object. Next we need to import app library. So now we imported app from our app library. Actually I made a typo. This is not YAP, it's YUP. Next step is to add validation for each field. Inside our shape function, we are going to add username, that is name of our first field. As value, add app.string.required. Inside this required method, add our error message. Here the error message is name is required. Here the username is name of our input field. You can see the name is username. Also it is a string and it is required. And the error message is name is required. We will get the error object as props in our component. So we are going to destructure the props and get the errors object. Next we are going to console log errors object and see what is inside the errors object. Click on submit button. Now the error object is printed. Its username and the error message we typed. We do not add anything inside the name field. That is why the required error message is shown. Now comment out this console log. Next we are going to add a warning message inside our form. So we added a small tag. Inside that we are going to show the error message. So errors.username. This will give us the error message. Go back to our project and submit without entering anything. Now you can see the error message is shown here. If you type something, the error message will disappear. Let's add some styling to this warning. I am adding the class text danger. This will change the text color to red. You can see now the warning is in red color. Next we are going to add two more validation. For that, go to app.js. Here we are going to add min, which is the minimum number, and here the minimum number is 2 and the warning is too short. Next validation is .max. This is the maximum number of character. Here we are going to give 12 and the warning is too long. So our username should be minimum 2 character. I am going to type a single character. You can see the error warning too short. That is because the minimum required value is 2 and the error warning we given is too short. Now if you type something, the error warning disappears and it's again come back when the character become more than 12. You can see the max value is 12. More than that, it will show the error too long. If you remove few characters, the error warning will disappear. Now go to contactform.js. If there is an error, we are going to add a red border to our input field. If there is no error, we are going to add green border. We are not going to remove form control class. Using ternary operation, if there is an error, we are going to add invalid class. And if there is no error, we are going to add valid class. Next, we need to create these two classes. For that, we are going to app.css file. It is inside the source folder. Remove all these classes. We are not using any of these classes. We added two CSS classes. First one is invalid. This is the class added when there is an error. The field is invalid. We added a border with thickness 1 pixel, type solid, and color red. We added important because we are overwriting the default property of our CSS framework. This is only required if you are using Bootstrap framework. Next class is the valid class. It's also add a border with a thickness 1 pixel and type solid. Only difference is that it is green. This is used to remove some of the default features of Bootstrap framework. If you are not using Bootstrap, you don't have to add this. Here I made a mistake. This is not a name, it's username. It is the name of our field. Now go back to our project. You can see initially our border is green. If there is an error, it changes to red. And again when there is no error, it changes back to green. Now it became red. Now reload this project. You know that initially our form is invalid, but it's still showing green. So we need to change that. We are going to extract one more props, that is touched. We can use these props to determine whether a field is touched or not. So before adding valid or invalid classes, we are going to check whether user touches username field. For that we are using ternary operation. If touch.username is true, then we are going to add invalid or valid field. Else we are not going to add invalid or valid class. We add the normal form styling, form control class. If user touch the field, we are going to check the validity of the field and we are going to add red or green border. Else we are not going to add any border. You can see initial green border is now gone. Green and red border only appear if we touch the field. Now let's create another field. For that we are going to copy this field and paste that just below that field. Next step is to replace the label. Now change the label name to age. Next change the name of the field. Name of the field is also age. So now we need to change every username to age because that is the name of our field. So we are changing errors.username to errors.age. Here also change touch.username to touch.age because age is the name of our field. In app.js we need to add two things. First is the initial value. Add age as a key inside our initial value object and the value is empty string. As you know, age is the name of our input field. You can see the name is age. Second thing we need to add in app.js is the validation. So now inside the validation object, add validation for our age field. Here also we use age as a key because the name of the field is age. First validator is a number validator. Age must be a number. So the error message is age must be a number. Next validator is integer. Age cannot be a decimal number. Also this field cannot be empty. Next validator is min validator. Minimum age here is 18. So the error message is you must be at least 18. Also the maximum age limit is 60. Now save both these files and go back to our project. Now I type age 3. You can see the warning, age limit is 18. Now the age is 33, so the warning disappear. You can only type numbers, no other characters are allowed. Only integers are allowed, no decimal points are allowed in this field. We only need to show this warning after we type something inside the name field. For that we are going to use touched props again. We are only going to show this warning if username field is touched. If touched.username is true, then we show the error message. We need to add this same condition to our age warning. If touched.age is true, then only we are going to show the error message. Now you can see only the error messages are showing in the field that we touched. Now if we look inside the elements, even if there is no error, the small tag is still there. So we don't have to add this small tag if there is no error. As you know, this small tag is used to show our warnings. So we are only going to add this tag if there is an error in our field. Let's add one more AND condition here. Inside this condition, let's add error.username. Now the small tag only gets added if error.username is true. Add this same condition to our age warning. Now you can see inside the elements there is no small tag. The error tag will only appear if there is an error. Now you can see the small tag appears because there is an error in the field. If there is no error, it will disappear. Now go back to VS Code and we are going to add a new field. So copy this age field and paste it below the age field. Next input field is email field. So change the label to email. Replace all age with the email. First we need to change the name of the field to email. Now change every errors.age and touched.age to touched.email and errors.email. Now go to app.js. We are going to add initial value for our email field. Add email as key and empty string as value. Next step is to add validation. For that, inside this object, add email validation. Add the name of the field, that is email. Also add email method with error message. This will check the validity of the email. This email field is also required. Now type something inside the email field. I am going to type coder. You can see it is showing invalid email. The reason for this error message is we used the email validator. So the input must be an email. If it is not structurally similar to an email, it will show an error. Next we need to add a phone field. For that, copy this email field and paste it below the email field. As we done before, change the label to phone. Next change the field name to phone. Also change every touched.email to touched.phone and every errors.email to errors.phone. All these steps are same for every field we created. Next we are going to give the initial value. This is also similar to other field. Give phone as key and an empty string as value. Only difference is the validation. For phone number validation, we use matches method. As a first argument, we pass a regular expression and the second argument we pass the error message. If you don't know what is regular expression, go to your browser and search regular expression. Basically, it is used to match a pattern with a string. It is such a huge topic, so I cannot explain it in a single video. If you like to learn more about regular expression, there are a lot of resources available online. Basically, it is used for matching a particular pattern with a string. Here in this phone field, only numbers are allowed. Also the minimum number of characters is 10. It also got other validations like country code, etc. All these validations are done using our regular expression. We need to add one more field, that is message field. As we done before, copy this field and paste it here. Change the label to message. Next, change name of field to message. Like we done before, change every touched.font to touched.message and every errors.font to errors.message. Next, we are going to change this input field into a text area. For that, type as text area. Next, we need to add a separate closing tag. Also remove this type is equal to text. Instead of closing it here, we are going to create a separate closing tag. Now we converted our input field into a text area. Now go back to app.js. Similar to other fields, we need to add the initial value. Here the initial value is empty string. Now add the validation for our message field. Message must be a string. Also the minimum length is 5 and the maximum length is 100. Also the field is required. Let's see if everything is working. The minimum required length is 5. Also the maximum length is 100. Now add some dummy values and press submit. You can see the values are now printed here, but we need to reset the form after submitting. Go back to VS Code and open app.js. Inside the onSubmit function, add another parameter, reset form. Now we are going to call this function after console log values. Now go back to our project and click submit. You can see all the values are now cleared. Next I am going to disable and enable our submit button. This is an optional step. Even if you do not do this, everything will work fine. To do this, we need two more probes. Let's destructure the probes and get that values. First one is valid and the second one is dirty. Both these are boolean values. We are going to add a disable attribute to our button. Disable become true when the form is not valid, that is not is valid or not dirty. Initially our button is now disabled. Now type some values. If every field become valid, then the button become enabled. If any of this field become invalid, then button will get disabled again. So the button will only get enabled if every field is valid. Thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe my channel. Your likes and subscriptions are very important for me. That will motivate me to create new videos. So please subscribe. Also like and share this video.